Trump snub would be the latest royal wedding controversy. It's hard enough for a regular couple to put together a wedding guest list that addresses complicated family dynamics and keeps everyone happy. But imagine being Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Like British royal couples before them over the past century, they are putting together a guest list for a wedding that will be broadcast globally. Talk about complicated dynamics. Harry and the American-born Markle also need to be mindful of how the presence of certain invitees and rejection of others could affect global politics, including Britain's relationship with the United States. On Wednesday, the grandson of Queen Elizabeth II was asked about whether he would invite his friends Barack and Michelle Obama to his big day on May 19, 2018. He's bonded with the former first couple since they started working together on the Invictus Games. Harry and Obama also enjoy a high-profile bromance that culminated with his interview with the former president that played on BBC Radio Wednesday. After his pre-taped interview with Obama, the prince said about inviting him and Michelle to the wedding, "We haven't put the invites or the guest list together yet, so who knows whether he's going to be invited or not. I wouldn't want to ruin that surprise." But the decision to invite the Obamas, and possibly not the Trumps, could touch off a diplomatic crisis between the British and U.S. governments, Vanity Fair reported. Current President Donald Trump isn't fond of his White House predecessor. Meanwhile, Harry and Markle aren't known to be fond of Trump and his policies. That could mean they wouldn't want Trump at their wedding. That could also mean they would prefer not to invite any Trump family members, including First Lady Melania Trump, though Harry enjoyed a cordial encounter with her at the Invictus Games in September. Maybe Ivanka Trump is hoping for an invitation. 2 years before Trump ran for president, Markle praised his favorite daughter as so incredibly savvy and intelligent in a column she wrote for her since-shuttered lifestyle blog The Tig. Ivanka Trump sent out a belated tweet congratulating Markle and Harry on their engagement. Some snarky Twitter users suspected she was trying to score an invitation. It's likely that any admiration Markle had for Ivanka Trump diminished after she campaigned for her father and joined his White House. In a 2016 interview, Markle pointedly called Trump divisive and misogynistic. Harry's evasion on the question of whether the Obamas would be on his wedding guest list is probably of little consolation to British government officials who are reportedly urging Harry to not invite them. According to The Sun, relations with Trump's White House are strained. Trump has put off visiting the UK, reportedly out of concerns that his presence in London could spark massive protests. Now with the royal wedding looming, there are further concerns that Prime Minister Theresa May would have trouble engaging with Trump diplomatically if he suffered another national snub by being kept off the guest list in favor of the Obamas, a senior government official told The Sun. Whatever happens, this royal wedding dilemma highlights the fact that putting together the guest list for such an affair has always come with headaches, whether they involve interpersonal conflicts among the aristocracy or delicate affairs of state. Here are noteworthy guest-related controversies from royal weddings past. When Princess Elizabeth II wed Prince Philip at Westminster Abbey in November 1947, their guest list included various princes, dukes and earls from Britain and the rest of Europe. But notably absent from the bride's side of the family was their country's former king, the Duke of Windsor, as well as his wife, the American-born former divorcee and socialite Wallis Simpson. The Duke's omission shouldn't have been surprising. Elizabeth II and her family had little fondness for the Duke, the former kind Edward VIII who abdicated the throne in 1937 so he could marry Simpson. Elizabeth's mother, Queen Elizabeth, pretty much hated Simpson. The Queen Mother called Simpson that woman and regarded her as a social climbing interloper whose marriage to Edward forced her husband to take over as King George VI. The stress of which may have led to his early death. There also were concerns, going back to the late 1930s, that Edward VIII harbored Nazi sympathies before and during World War II. These concerns deepened after Edward abdicated and he and Wallis traveled to Germany to meet with Adolf Hitler and other Nazi leaders. Odd creature, the late Queen Mother wrote about her brother-in-law in 1939. The Independent reported. He is exactly like Hitler in thinking that anybody who doesn't agree with him is automatically wrong. President Ronald Reagan was invited to the July 29, 1981 wedding of Prince Charles and the future Diana, Princess of Wales, but he opted to stay in Washington, D.C. and sent his wife Nancy Reagan to represent the United States. The British press gave Nancy Reagan a hard time for what they described as her regal behavior, The Washington Post reported. The restrictions imposed on her behalf were more regal than anything attempted by Buckingham Palace in recent memory, the left-leaning Guardian newspaper said. There also was a flap over Mrs. Reagan's decision to not bow to the Queen. But she really put people's backs up when she arrived at Prince Charles' polo match in a chauffeured limousine, replete with traveling entourage, the Post reported. Observers couldn't help noticing the Queen driving up later at the wheel of her station wagon, the Post said. Princess Anne followed in a Range Rover. Unlike Prince Harry, his older brother William, the second in line to the British throne, wasn't friendly with Barack and Michelle Obama when he got married. Perhaps that's one reason that Queen Elizabeth II left the Obamas off the guest list for William's wedding to Kate Middleton in April 2011, though she invited other heads of state, the Daily Mail said. But the Obamas could have been left off because of security concerns, the Mail said. The Obamas also were expected to visit London for a state visit at another date. William and Kate would become friendly with the Obamas later in his presidency, as when the first couple paid a visit to William and Kate at Kensington Palace in 2016, and they memorably met Prince George. The really notable non-invitee to William and Kate's wedding was Sarah Ferguson, the ex-wife of William's uncle Prince Andrew. Royal journalist Mark Saunders, writing in a column for CNN, called this snub as callous as the treatment shown to Mary Queen of Scots, whom Queen Elizabeth I had executed. Ferguson and Andrew, Duke of York, had both starred in a royal wedding of their own in July 1986. They remained on good terms after their divorce 10 years later, Saunders said. Andrew and their two daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, were invited to William and Kate's wedding, but not Ferguson. All of which makes Fergie's omission from the guest list seem so odd, Saunders said. Saunders said the royal family probably continued to consider Ferguson a vulgar embarrassment. She had famously been photographed having her toes sucked by her financial advisor at a villa in Saint-Tropez, France, Saunders said. Then came 2010, when she was secretly filmed selling access to her former husband for $700,000. He added. Saunders also speculated that William held a grudge against Ferguson. His mother and Ferguson had once been great friends, but had a falling out 6 months before Diana's death in 1997. Diana wouldn't even taken Ferguson's phone calls. Then again, Saunders said, Ferguson might have just decided to stay away on her own, knowing that the royal knives were still out for her. It would appear Fergie has been consigned to the same dustbin as Wallis Simpson.